Liam gazed out of the observation deck of the Terran exploration ship Resolute, watching the stars flicker across the void of space. He had always been fascinated by the endless expanse, the uncharted territory, and the mystery of what lay beyond. Today, however, his mind was elsewhere. His ship had picked up an unusual energy signature deep in the Andromeda sector, a place known for being heavily controlled by the alien Andromedans, a hostile race the humans had been at odds with for decades. "Commander Liam, we've received confirmation," said Brian, his trusted first officer, snapping Liam out of his thoughts. "The Andromedans are mobilizing near the coordinates of the energy source. Whatever this is, they're interested in it too." Liam straightened up, his gaze sharp. "That's not good. We can't let them get their hands on it first." He paused, calculating the risk. "Set course for the anomaly. We need to find out what's going on." The Resolute was a state-of-the-art Terran ship, equipped with stealth technology and advanced weaponry. But against the massive Andromedan fleet, they were still outnumbered. Liam knew that if it came down to a fight, their chances were slim. But humans had never been ones to back down from a challenge, and Liam wasn't about to start now. As the ship surged into hyperspace, the crew began preparing for whatever lay ahead. "What do we know about the Andromedans' involvement?" Liam asked Brian as they reviewed the data. "They're definitely on the move," Brian replied, his voice tense. "From the intercepted transmissions, it sounds like they're searching for something they call the Beast." Liam raised an eyebrow. "The Beast? That doesn't sound good." Brian shrugged, equally puzzled. "Whatever it is, they're treating it like it's their golden ticket. Some kind of weapon or asset that could turn the tide in their favor." Liam's mind raced. The Andromedans had been pushing against human territories for years, but if they found some new superweapon, it could spell disaster for humanity. "Captain," a voice crackled over the intercom, "we're approaching the coordinates." "Good. Activate the stealth field," Liam ordered. "Let's not announce our presence just yet." The Resolute dropped out of hyperspace, and the scene before them was nothing short of breathtaking. They were on the edge of an asteroid field, and at its center was a colossal alien structure, clearly Andromedan in origin, but pulsing with a strange energy that sent chills down Liam's spine. "That's the source of the anomaly," Brian said, his eyes wide. "It's huge." Liam nodded. "And it's probably where they're keeping the Beast." His brow furrowed in thought. "We need to infiltrate that structure and find out what's going on before they can use it against us." The crew set to work, preparing for the mission ahead. They would have to act quickly and quietly, planting charges to sabotage the facility if necessary. It was risky, but there was no alternative. The fate of humanity might very well depend on what they uncovered here. Liam and his team suited up in their combat armor, readying themselves for the infiltration mission. The Resolute hovered silently behind a cluster of large asteroids, its stealth system hiding it from the Andromedan patrols that circled the massive alien structure. Brian, now standing beside Liam, checked his wrist display. "We've located a weak point in their shield grid," he said. "It'll give us just enough time to slip inside undetected, but we'll need to be fast." Liam nodded. "All right, everyone. You know the drill. In and out, no unnecessary risks. Let's find out what this Beast is, sabotage it if we can, and get back to the Resolute." The team, consisting of a few elite soldiers, gathered around the shuttle that would take them to the alien facility. The tension in the air was palpable, but Liam remained calm. He trusted his crew and their skills. As the shuttle glided through the blackness of space, the alien structure grew larger in the viewport. It was an imposing sight, an intricate blend of alien technology and organic design. Pulsating lights along its surface hinted at the immense power within, and the faint hum of energy reverberated even through the vacuum of space. "We're in," Brian whispered as they passed through the gap in the shields. "Landing zone is clear." The shuttle touched down inside a maintenance bay, hidden from the main corridors of the structure. Liam and his team disembarked swiftly, moving with practiced precision. The air inside was thick and had an odd metallic tang, as if the structure itself was alive and breathing backslash. "Stay alert," Liam murmured. This place could be crawling with Andromedan soldiers. They crept through dimly lit corridors, the alien architecture casting eerie shadows around them. Strange biomechanical devices hummed and clicked as they passed, their purpose unknown. Liam's grip tightened on his weapon as they moved deeper into the facility. Finally, they reached a large chamber. In the center, surrounded by energy fields and containment devices, was something that made Liam's heart skip a beat. The beast, Brian whispered, wide-eyed. Before them, in a massive containment pod, was an enormous creature. It looked like a cross between a reptile and a canine, with sleek black fur, glowing red eyes, and razor-sharp claws. The energy field that surrounded it flickered occasionally, as if the creature's mere presence was too much for it to contain. "That thing looks like it could tear through a fleet of ships," one of the soldiers muttered. "Or an entire planet," Liam added grimly. "We need to figure out how to disable it. Brian, any ideas?" Brian scanned the alien controls, his fingers dancing over his wrist display as he worked to translate the alien script. "There's an override system. If we can get to the control room, we should be able to shut this thing down permanently." Liam nodded. "Then let's move. We don't have much time before they realize we're here." As they turned to leave, the creature in the containment pod shifted. Its eyes opened and locked onto Liam, a low growl emanating from its throat. "Let's hope we can do this without waking it up," Liam muttered. The team moved quickly through the facility, heading toward the control room. The tension was high, every shadow and distant noise making them flinch. Liam's mind raced. Whatever that creature was, the Andromedans clearly intended to use it as a weapon. But against whom? Humanity, no doubt, but was it only them, or did the Andromedans have other enemies in mind? "Commander," Brian whispered urgently, pulling up schematics on his wrist display. "The control room is just ahead, but I'm picking up movement. Andromedan soldiers are already on their way. They might know we're here." "Then we move faster," Liam replied, his voice steady. "We can't let them unleash that thing." As they reached the control room, the door slid open with a hiss, revealing a series of alien consoles and holographic displays. At the far end of the room stood the central control panel, connected to the containment pod where the beast was held. "All right, Brian," Liam said, motioning for the team to spread out and secure the area. "Do your thing." Brian rushed to the panel and began working furiously to break through the security protocols. The alien symbols flashed on the screen, but his years of experience with Andromedan tech allowed him to bypass most of it. Still, it was taking time. Too much time. Come on," Brian muttered under his breath. Suddenly, the lights in the control room flickered, and a warning siren blared throughout the facility. The containment field around the beast was destabilizing. "They know we're here," Liam shouted. "Everyone, get ready for a fight." The doors to the control room slid open, and a squad of Andromedan soldiers burst in, weapons blazing. Liam and his team took cover, returning fire with lethal precision. The air crackled with energy blasts as the two sides clashed in a fierce firefight. "We can't hold them off forever, Brian," one of the soldiers shouted. "I'm almost there," Brian replied, his fingers flying over the controls. The screen beeped, and the alien script flashed red. "Got it. The containment field is." Before he could finish, a deafening roar shook the facility. The energy field around the beast collapsed completely, and the creature burst free from its containment pod. It leaped into the air, its glowing eyes locking onto the Andromedan soldiers. Liam's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the beast land with a thunderous crash. But instead of attacking, the creature paused, sniffing the air. The Andromedans, panicked, fired their weapons at the beast. But the creature seemed unfazed, its hide absorbing the energy blasts without a scratch. It let out a low growl, then turned toward the human team backslash. Liam braced himself for the worst, but as the beast approached, it tilted its head curiously, lowering itself to the ground. To Liam's amazement, it made a soft, almost puppy-like whimper. Liam raised his weapon but hesitated. "Is it plain?" Brian blinked in disbelief. "No way. It's acting like a puppy. Liam lowered his weapon cautiously. This might be our ticket out of here, he said, eyeing the beast warily. Let's hope it stays friendly. Liam stood frozen, his heart racing. The massive creature, which had just moments ago been the source of their greatest fear, was now lying on the floor, wagging its thick tail. Its eyes, glowing red in the low light, had softened into an almost playful expression as it stared at the humans. The Andromedans were not as lucky. In a panic, they continued firing at the creature, their energy blasts bouncing off its impenetrable hide. The beast let out a low growl, annoyed, and in a flash, it lunged toward the alien soldiers. With a single swipe of its massive paw, it sent them crashing into the walls of the control room. "Hold your fire," Liam shouted, waving his hand at his team. "It's not after us." One of the soldiers, Jenkins, lowered his rifle hesitantly. "Commander, are we sure about this? That thing could turn on us any second." Liam nodded cautiously. "Yeah, but right now, it's not our enemy. If it sees the Andromedans as a threat, maybe we can use that to our advantage." The remaining Andromedans, realizing they were outmatched, tried to flee. The beast snarled, bounding after them and tearing through the metallic doorframe with ease. Liam's team was left standing in the control room, stunned. "That's not what I expected," Brian muttered, still trying to wrap his head around what had just happened. "The Andromedans must have been controlling it somehow, but now that it's free..." Liam holstered his weapon and took a deep breath. "We might have just gained an ally." "An ally?" Jenkins raised an eyebrow. "You're saying we should trust that thing?" "We don't have much of a choice," Liam replied. "It could have torn us apart back there, but it didn't. It's smart enough to recognize us as different from the Andromedans." Brian nodded slowly. "And if we can get it to follow us, we might just have a way to turn the tide of this whole war." Liam turned to his team. "All right, we're changing the plan. The beast might be our best chance of getting out of here alive and taking down this facility. We'll track it down, see if we can guide it to do some real damage." The team moved cautiously through the corridors, following the trail of destruction left by the beast. They passed crushed doors, shattered consoles, and the lifeless bodies of Andromedan soldiers strewn across the floors. It was clear the beast had little trouble dispatching its former captors. As they approached the central reactor room, they heard the creature's growls echoing through the halls. Liam motioned for his team to hold back as they peeked around the corner. The beast stood at the center of the reactor chamber, surrounded by Andromedans. The aliens were frantically trying to contain it, setting up energy barriers and firing their weapons, but nothing seemed to work. The beast was too strong, too fast, and too furious. Liam saw an opportunity. "We need to overload the reactor," he said quietly to Brian. "If we can blow this place up, we can cripple their entire operation. The beast is already tearing through their forces. We just need to make sure they don't have time to regroup." Brian nodded and began hacking into the reactor's control systems. "I'll set the overload timer for 5 minutes. That should give us enough time to escape." As Brian worked, Liam's eyes were fixed on the beast. It was a terrifying sight, no doubt, but something about it seemed almost noble. It was fighting for its freedom, just as they were. The reactor's alarms blared to life as Brian initiated the overload sequence. "All right, it's set," he shouted over the noise. "We've got 5 minutes before this place goes up in flames." Liam looked toward the beast, which had just finished ripping through the last of the Andromedans in the room. It turned to face the humans, its glowing eyes locking onto Liam once again. "Come on," Liam said softly, motioning toward the exit. "Follow us." The beast tilted its head, then slowly padded toward them, its massive form casting long shadows across the reactor room. It let out a soft growl, but didn't seem hostile. It was almost as if it understood what they were trying to do. "Well, I'll be damned," Jenkins muttered. "It's actually listening." With the reactor set to explode and the beast at their side, Liam and his team raced through the alien facility, navigating the maze-like corridors at breakneck speed. The blaring alarms echoed through the halls, growing louder with each passing second. They had little time left. "Move," Move, Liam urged, his voice tense but steady. He kept glancing over his shoulder at the beast, which followed closely behind them, its powerful legs pounding against the metal floors. For such a massive creature, it was surprisingly agile. Brian jogged up next to Liam, panting heavily. Do you think it really understands what's going on? I don't know, Liam admitted, but it's helping us, and that's all that matters right now. The group rounded a corner and skidded to a stop. A squad of Andromedan soldiers stood at the far end of the corridor, blocking their path. The aliens raised their weapons, ready to fire. Take cover, Liam shouted, diving behind a metal pillar. His team followed suit, returning fire as energy blasts ricocheted down the hallway. But the beast, undeterred, charged headlong into the fray. With a thunderous roar, it leaped at the Andromedan soldiers, claws flashing. Within moments, the aliens were scattered, some crushed under its massive paws, others sent flying into the walls. Okay, I'm starting to like this thing, Jenkins said, grinning as he stepped out from cover. The beast looked back at them briefly, almost as if checking to make sure they were following, before bounding further down the corridor. We need to keep moving, Liam called out, pushing his team onward. The reactor's going to blow any second. They raced through the twisting passageways, the rumble of the reactor growing louder with each step. The facility was coming apart at the seams. Lights flickered, walls groaned, and explosions echoed in the distance. They could feel the heat rising from the overloaded reactor, creeping ever closer. Finally, they reached the landing bay where their shuttle was waiting. The blast doors had begun to close, sealing off the exit. Brian, get those doors open, Liam ordered. Brian sprinted to the control panel and worked furiously to override the lockdown. Come on, come on. The beast paced anxiously behind them, its ears twitching as the facility's walls groaned under the strain of the imminent explosion. Doors are opening, Brian shouted as the massive blast doors slowly began to rise. The team rushed toward the shuttle, with the beast close behind. Liam paused at the ramp, looking back at the creature. It stood just outside the shuttle, hesitant. Come on, Liam called out, motioning for it to board. The beast let out a low whine, as if unsure of what to do. It had been confined to this place for so long, trapped and controlled by the Andromedans. Now it was free, but what did that freedom mean? Get in, big guy, Jenkins shouted from inside the shuttle. We're blowing this place to bits. With a final glance back at the crumbling facility, the beast made its decision. It leaped onto the shuttle, its massive frame just fitting through the door. All right, let's get out of here, Liam ordered, and the shuttle's engines roared to life. As they soared into space, the facility behind them erupted in a massive explosion, sending debris flying in all directions. The shockwave rattled the shuttle, but they held course, putting distance between themselves and the destruction. Liam let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They had made it, and somehow they had a new, unexpected ally. As the shuttle hurtled away from the destruction, silence settled over the cabin. Liam slumped into his seat, his body finally relaxing after the intense firefight and narrow escape. The beast, now resting in a corner of the cargo bay, seemed oddly calm, its huge chest rising and falling steadily. Brian glanced at the creature, then back at Liam. So, now what? We've got a massive alien beast on board, and we don't even know what it is. Liam rubbed his temples, still trying to process the chaos of the last hour. Honestly, I didn't think we'd make it this far, but right now we need to focus on getting out of Andromedan space. Once we're safe, we can figure out what to do next. Jenkins, sitting across from them, tapped nervously on his rifle. The fleet's gonna lose it when they see us flying back with a monster. They might shoot first, ask questions later. Brian grimaced. Yeah, and we don't have a lot of time to figure out how to explain this. We're sitting on a ticking clock. Liam glanced at the beast. Despite its terrifying appearance, there was a strange connection he felt toward the creature. It hadn't harmed them, even when it had every reason to. Instead, it had turned against its captors and helped them escape. Could it be intelligent enough to understand their situation? Let's focus on getting back to the fleet, Liam said, standing up. We'll deal with the consequences when we get there. The team nodded in agreement, and Brian returned to the cockpit to chart a course back to the nearest human-controlled sector. As the shuttle sliced through the vacuum of space, Liam's thoughts drifted back to the events at the Andromedan facility. The beast had been held captive for who knows how long, forced to fight for its alien masters. But now it was free, and on board their ship. He walked over to the cargo bay where the beast lay curled up, watching him with glowing red eyes. Its gaze was steady, not hostile, but curious, as if waiting for something. "Hey there, big guy," Liam said softly, keeping his distance. "You did good back there. Thanks for saving our skins." The beast blinked slowly, its tail giving a gentle thump against the metal floor. Liam couldn't help but smile. Despite its terrifying form, the creature was acting like a giant dog, a far cry from the unstoppable force of destruction the Andromedans had unleashed. Jenkins appeared beside him, raising an eyebrow. "You really think it understands you?" "I don't know," Liam replied, "but I'm willing to bet it's smarter than we think." Jenkins shrugged, still eyeing the creature warily. "I hope you're right. Otherwise, we're in for a rough ride." Liam chuckled. "Yeah, well, we've been through worse." Suddenly, a sharp beep echoed from the cockpit. Brian's voice came over the intercom, tension clear in his tone. "Commander, you might want to get up here. We've got company." Liam and Jenkins exchanged a glance before rushing to the cockpit. Outside the viewport, a group of Andromedan ships loomed, their sleek, angular designs unmistakable. A quick scan of the radar confirmed it. 3 destroyers and a fleet of smaller fighters were rapidly closing in on their position. "How did they find us so fast?" Jenkins asked, panic creeping into his voice. "They must have tracked us when we escaped the facility," Brian said, frantically adjusting the ship's controls. "We're still too deep in their territory. They won't let us go without a fight." Liam's mind raced. Their shuttle wasn't equipped for a battle of this scale, especially against Andromedan warships. They had no choice but to run, but the Andromedans were closing in too fast. "Brian, can we jump to FTL?" Liam asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Not yet," Brian replied, his hands flying across the control panel. "The drive needs time to charge. If we jump too soon, we could end up in the middle of a star or worse." A sudden jolt shook the ship as the first barrage of enemy fire slammed into their shields. The shuttle shuddered, warning alarms blaring through the cockpit. "We don't have time for a full charge," Liam shouted. "We need to find cover or we're done for." Ryan's eyes scanned the nearby systems. "There's an asteroid field nearby. If we can lose them in there, it might buy us enough time to charge the FTL drive." "Do it," Liam ordered. The shuttle veered sharply as Brian guided them toward the asteroid field. Behind them, the Andromedan fleet opened fire, beams of energy streaking past them, narrowly missing the shuttle. The ship groaned under the strain as they weaved between the massive floating rocks. Jenkins gripped the armrests of his seat, his knuckles white. "This is crazy. We're flying into a death trap." "It's our only shot," Brian snapped, dodging another chunk of space debris. "Unless you've got a better idea." The shuttle dipped and rolled through the asteroid field, the Andromedan fighters hot on their tail. Every time they thought they'd shaken their pursuers, more appeared, their sleek ships darting through the rocks with practiced ease. Liam clenched his fists, feeling the pressure mount. They were outmatched, outgunned, and running out of time. Just when it seemed like they wouldn't make it, a deafening roar echoed through the shuttle. The beast, sensing the danger, let out an earth-shattering growl, its body tense and ready. It paced in the cargo bay, its massive claws scraping the floor, as if preparing for battle. Liam's mind raced. Could the beast do more than just fight ground battles? Was there something about it that the Andromedans hadn't accounted for? Suddenly, the shuttle lurched to the side as an asteroid clipped their shields. Sparks flew from the control panels, and Brian fought to keep them on course. "We're losing shields," Brian shouted, One more hit and we're done. Liam's heart pounded. This was it. Unless they could come up with a miracle, they weren't getting out of this alive. Then an idea struck him. Brian, open the cargo bay doors. Brian spun around, his eyes wide. Are you insane? We're in the middle of an asteroid field. Just do it, Liam barked, rushing to the cargo bay. The beast was already at the door, its body coiled like a spring. Liam could see the raw power in its muscles, the energy radiating from its massive frame. He didn't know how or why, but somehow he knew the creature could help. Brian hesitated for a moment before slamming his hand on the control panel. The cargo bay doors hissed open, revealing the black void of space beyond. All right, big guy, Liam said, looking up at the beast. Show us what you can do. Without hesitation, the beast leaped out of the shuttle, its massive form disappearing into the asteroid field. For a moment, there was silence. Then, one by one, the Andromedan fighters exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The radar lit up with enemy ships disappearing from view as the beast tore through the enemy fleet, using the asteroids to its advantage. Its speed and strength were beyond anything the Andromedans could counter. The shuttle rocked as the remaining enemy ships scrambled to escape the unexpected assault. Brian, taking advantage of the chaos, steered them toward the edge of the asteroid field. The FTL drives charged. Brian called out, "We're ready to jump." Liam stared out the viewport, watching as the last of the Andromedan ships vanished in the distance. He couldn't see the beast anymore, but he knew it was still out there fighting. "Punch it," Liam said quietly. The shuttle shot forward, leaving the asteroid field and the Andromedans behind as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. As the stars blurred around them, Liam allowed himself a moment to breathe. They had made it. But the question lingered in his mind. What had they unleashed? The moment they dropped out of FTL, the hum of the ship's engines softened, replaced by an eerie calm. They had escaped the Andromedans for now, but no one in the cockpit breathed easy. Brian adjusted the shuttle's controls, his gaze still glued to the scanners. "We're clear," he said, his voice carrying a hint of disbelief. "We made it." Liam stood behind him, arms crossed, staring out into the vast emptiness of space. They had survived the impossible, but victory had come at a price. The beast, whatever it was, had saved their lives, but now it was gone, lost in the asteroid field, battling the Andromedans alone. Liam's stomach tightened. Had they just left behind their greatest ally? "We should report back to the fleet," Jenkins suggested, still catching his breath. "They'll need to know what we found out there." Liam nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. What about the beast? Can we locate it? Maybe it's still out there fighting. Brian shook his head. Even if we could track it, the Andromedans won't stop hunting us. They'll be back. We need to get home before they regroup. Liam clenched his fists, frustration building. The beast had saved them, risked its life for them, and now they were abandoning it. But he couldn't argue with Brian's logic. They had barely made it out alive, and the Andromedans would be relentless in their pursuit. "Send a signal to the fleet," Liam said at last. "Let them know we're coming in, but keep an eye on those scanners, if there's any sign of that creature." "I'll let you know," Brian finished, giving a nod. "We owe it that much." The shuttle cruised through empty space as they made their way back to the human fleet. The silence in the cockpit was thick with unspoken tension. Jenkins broke it first, letting out a low whistle. "Can you believe it, though? We survived the most feared weapon in the galaxy, and it didn't even try to kill us." Liam leaned back in his chair, shaking his head slowly. "I don't think it was ever the threat they made it out to be. It wasn't some mindless monster. It helped us. If the Andromedans thought they could control it, they were wrong." "But why didn't it attack us?" Jenkins pressed. "I mean, we were practically sitting ducks." Liam thought for a moment. The creature had been caged, used as a weapon, but it had turned on its captors. It had recognized the humans as something different, something worth saving. "Maybe it saw something in us," Liam said quietly, "something it respected. Or maybe it just wanted its freedom." As they approached human space, the familiar form of the fleet came into view. Ships of all sizes orbited a large station, each one bristling with weaponry, but it was their home. No one spoke as they passed through the outer defenses and docked with the station. The moment they landed, a team of engineers and medical personnel rushed to meet them. The hatch opened, and Liam, Brian, and Jenkins stepped out onto the metal platform. A high-ranking officer, Admiral Kessler, stood waiting, her arms crossed and her face unreadable. She eyed them up and down, her gaze lingering on the scuffed armor and the weariness etched into their faces. "Commander, what the hell happened out there?" she asked sharply, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "You were supposed to be on a recon mission. Instead, you lead Andromedan forces straight to our doorstep." Liam straightened up, ready for the inevitable debrief. "Admiral, we were ambushed. The Andromedans had something we didn't expect, a weapon, a creature they called the Beast. They sent it after us, but it wasn't what they thought it was." Admiral Kessler raised an eyebrow, skepticism clear in her expression. "A creature? And you're saying it didn't kill you?" "It turned on them," Liam explained. "It helped us escape. But the Andromedans are still out there. We need to be ready." The Admiral crossed her arms tighter, her eyes narrowing. "And where is this so-called beast now?" Liam hesitated. "It stayed behind. We couldn't track it." Kessler's jaw tightened. "You expect me to believe that some alien monster just decided to save you and vanish into thin air?" "With all due respect, Admiral," Brian interjected, "it wasn't a monster. It was more than that. Smarter, stronger. We don't know exactly what it is, but it's no ordinary creature." Kessler let out a sigh, clearly frustrated. "Well, whether or not I believe this beast story, we've got bigger problems. The Andromedans will come looking for you, and they won't stop until they find this thing. You've just painted a target on all of us." Liam couldn't deny it. Their escape had been a temporary reprieve, but the Andromedans would come for revenge, and when they did, they'd be ready. "We'll do whatever it takes to protect the fleet," Liam said firmly. "But I don't think the Andromedans fully understand what they've unleashed." Kessler glanced between them, weighing her options. After a moment, she turned to one of her officers. "Prepare the fleet, increase patrols, and set up long-range scans for any incoming Andromedan ships." As the officer left, Kessler returned her attention to Liam. "We'll debrief later, Commander. For now, get some rest. You look like hell." Liam nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Admiral." As they walked away, Jenkins let out a long sigh of relief. "Well, that went better than I expected." Brian chuckled. "Yeah, not getting court-martialed is always a good day." Liam smiled faintly but said nothing. His thoughts drifted back to the beast. Out there somewhere, it was still fighting, still free. The Andromedans thought they had controlled it, but they had unleashed something far greater than they understood. And humanity had made a powerful ally. That night, as Liam sat in his quarters, the quiet hum of the station barely registering, he found himself staring out at the stars. He knew the Andromedans would be back. Their hunger for conquest, their obsession with power, it wouldn't allow them to let this go. But there was something else, too. A sense that their story with the beast wasn't over. He couldn't shake the feeling that their paths would cross again. In the dark void of space, the beast roamed, a force of nature now freed from its chains. Liam knew that when the time came, the beast would return, and when it did, humanity would stand ready, not as enemies, but as allies, perhaps even friends. For now, though, they had won a battle, and in the chaos of the Andromedan Empire, they had sparked something far greater than the Andromedans could have ever anticipated. The war was far from over, but with the beast on their side, humanity had never been stronger. The Andromedan Empire had been silent for weeks. That silence was unsettling. Liam stood at the observation deck, looking out at the swirling nebula beyond the fleet's defenses. The stars seemed peaceful, but he knew better. The Andromedans were regrouping, planning their next move. They wouldn't let their defeat in the asteroid field go unanswered. Reports had already started trickling in, scouts vanishing on the fringes of human space, strange energy readings from deep within the Andromedan-controlled systems, and the unmistakable signs of a massive military build-up. The galaxy was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to break. But something else had caught Liam's attention. Unexplained anomalies were being detected across the galactic sector, disturbances that defied all known technology. Faint signals, distortions in space-time, and remnants of battles where no human or Andromedan ships had been present. Rumors spread that the beast, once thought to be a mindless tool of war, was out there, making its presence known. Some whispered that it was hunting the Andromedans, destroying their fleets from the shadows. Others believed it was searching for something, or someone. In his quarters, Liam received daily briefings from reconnaissance teams, reports on fleet movements, and updates from Admiral Kessler. But one transmission stood out, a coded message from a deep space outpost at the edge of the galaxy. The outpost had intercepted an unusual signal, one that matched the energy signature of the beast. "Commander," the message had said, "we believe it's trying to communicate." Liam sat at his desk, replaying the data. The signal was faint, almost indecipherable, but there was a pattern, a rhythm to it. His pulse quickened. The beast wasn't just some wild creature unleashed by the Andromedans. It was intelligent, far more than anyone had anticipated. He stared at the screen, listening to the low hum of the encrypted signal. It felt familiar, as if the beast had learned something from their brief encounter. Or perhaps it was reaching out, trying to form a connection. "Sir?" Brian's voice broke through the silence, standing at the entrance. "We've decoded part of the transmission. You're going to want to hear this." Liam rose from his chair and followed Brian to the comms room. Jenkins was already there, pacing anxiously. "What do we have?" Liam asked, his voice steady but filled with curiosity. Jenkins nodded to Brian, who pulled up the audio. It crackled at first, distorted by the vast distances it had traveled. Then, after a moment, a single phrase came through, clear as day. "I am free. We will meet again." The room fell silent, the weight of those words sinking in. Liam's mind raced. The beast wasn't just some ancient weapon left to rot in the void. It was something far greater, something alive and aware. It had saved them once, and now it seemed to be waiting, watching, and perhaps even learning from the humans it had spared. "Do you think it's an ally?" Jenkins asked, his brow furrowed. "Or another threat?" Liam considered the question carefully. "I think it's both," he said finally. "It's not human, and it doesn't think like we do, but we gave it something the Andromedans never did, freedom, and that means something." Brian leaned back against the console, shaking his head in disbelief. "Whatever it is, we're in deep now. If the Andromedans come back, and that thing shows up again." Liam nodded. "We'll have to be ready, for all of it." Months passed, and the human fleet prepared for war. New ships were built, old alliances were reinforced, and training intensified. All the while, the mysterious signals from the beast continued, growing stronger, more complex. The Andromedans, too, were moving. Their armadas began to mass at the borders of human space, ready to strike. But something had changed in the balance of power. The fear that once dominated the galaxy was now shifting. Whispers of the beast's rebellion had spread across the stars. More and more civilizations, those long oppressed by the Andromedans, were beginning to rise up, emboldened by the idea that even the Andromedans could be challenged, that even their most terrifying weapon had turned against them. The galaxy was on the brink of something new, something unpredictable. Liam stood once more on the observation deck, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, in the vast expanse of space, the beast was waiting. He could feel it. The Andromedans would come, and when they did, humanity would stand firm, but they wouldn't be standing alone. The beast, once thought to be a symbol of fear, had become a wild card. It had chosen its own path, and perhaps, in doing so, had become humanity's greatest ally. Liam smiled to himself, a sense of calm washing over him as he stared into the void. The Andromedans would come soon. The war was inevitable. But this time, the galaxy wouldn't tremble in fear of their empire. This time, They'd know that humanity had friends in the darkest corners of the cosmos, friends who had been underestimated for far too long. And when the time came, when the Andromedans unleashed their fury, humanity would be ready. The beast was free, and so was the future.